Hi guys, so I just finished a presentation talk where I talked about the world of graphic design to about 20 high schoolers. I had a teacher reach out to me via email a few weeks ago asking if I would be open to doing a presentation to talk about graphic design as a career. Now, I wasn't allowed to record the presentation or the students, so I'm just representing it. And I wanted to share that with you today. But I hope this presentation, inspires you or gives you some insight on graphic design as a creative career. So first, I want to introduce myself if you guys don't know me. Hi, I'm Dena. I've been a graphic designer for the past 8+ years now. But for even longer, I've been a content creator for 10+ years. Yeah, I started on YouTube when I was like 12, 13, and I'm still doing it. So I feel so old, but anyways, I was born in Dallas, Texas. I'm also a cat mom of two beautiful fur babies named Sunny and Mooney, as you can see in the little gif there. And I'm a boxing enthusiast. I love the sport and the art of boxing. Although I don't do it competitively, I just love the invigorating feeling of the sound of a punching bag and punching a bag. It's just feels good. It's a very therapeutic and a meditative thing for me. I'm also a sucker for sci-fi and rom-com movies, so anything in that genre I'm most likely watching. And I'm building a toy brand called Dino Cat. Now, I didn't always know I wanted to do design. So I wanted to walk you through my creative journey a little bit so you can kind of understand how I got here. So let's rewind back to the beginning of time for me, the early days, life as a kid. Now, I'm one of those people that before the age of 6 or 7, I don't remember anything. So that photo on the very far right is probably when I was around that age. I don't know why I was so serious in that photo. I just didn't look happy. Anyways, I remember my earliest memory of doing something creative was like when I was at my grandma's house one day and she was babysitting my brother and I. She had on her table a coloring book and crayons and colored pencils laying around. And I just remember picking up a crayon, opening the book, and I just started getting immersed in coloring. And I think that was really my first taste of creativity. And as I got older and hit elementary and middle school, I naturally gravitated towards drawing and painting, which leads me to my first creative side quest, if you will. So these are some of my early works, and I just made things that I liked. I feel like this is how most creative people start off. But my next creative side quest happened when I was in fifth to sixth grade, and that was origami and paper crafts. And I remember being so fascinated by origami and the arts of folding paper in elementary and middle school. I liked working with paper since it was simple, affordable, and just really calming to do. And then about a year later, I stumbled upon duct tape wallets. Now, at this time, duct tape wallets was a huge trend. It was a really big thing. And I remember I was in seventh grade, and I basically got inspired by a classmate who had one. It was like during lunch, we were in the cafeteria, and she just like whips her wallet out, and like everyone was so fascinated, me included. And I remember that day, I asked my dad to take me to Walmart to get my first roll of duct tape. And I didn't know where to get the colored ones at the time, so I just opted for the gray one. But I went home that day and I just watched a bunch of YouTube videos and I dedicated to practicing and getting better. And over time I did. And I also didn't just limit myself to just wallets. I expanded to hats, paintings, portraits, figurines, and even braided bracelets. So I got to be really creative with this medium, and I was truly obsessed and immersed in this craft. And once I got decent, I started uploading YouTube videos to show my wallets and even made tutorials. And these videos gained traction organically over time. And naturally, I started getting messages from people asking me to make them custom wallets. And I kind of just unknowingly started my first business when I was like 13. And I would charge $10, $20, and even upwards to $80 depending on the complexity of the wallet. Naturally, when business expands, what do you usually need? A website and a business card. So I took it upon myself to design those, and these were essentially my first attempts at graphic design. And I obviously didn't have any graphic design skills. I just created what I needed and thought looked somewhat decent. And I didn't even use like proper design software for the cards. So, uh, this is really cringe to me looking back at these, but it goes to show my growth, you know? When you start anything new or unfamiliar, you will most likely suck, and that's okay. But I continued this duct tape wallet business throughout high school, which kind of leads me into the next chapter of my life, the roadblock. At this point, I graduated high school, but the problems were I no longer enjoyed making wallets. I knew it was not a sustainable career, and I had to get serious on my career choice now, but I didn't know what I wanted to do, and I was just super lost. But one thing I did know was that I wanted to go to college to figure things out. So, for my first 2 years of college, I focused on my core classes. And it was during this time I constantly reflected and asked myself the question of what career do I want? And I pivoted many times, as you can see. I started thinking I wanted to major in interior design, and then I changed it to architecture and then accounting. And after talking with my college advisor, I eventually landed on visual communication, aka graphic design. And I remember she just given me a number of reasons that made this career so intriguing to me. The main one being that I would get paid to be creative. And at this point, I knew that I was a creative at heart and that no other path would really fulfill me other than a creative field. So it also seemed like a very sustainable career choice because every industry and business essentially needs it. You can basically work from anywhere. All you need is a Wi Fi and laptop. You don't need to be good at math or science. And that was a really great thing for me because those are my worst subjects in school. You also don't need a degree. Like most designers are self taught and they learn from YouTube, online courses, and practice, but it's a very low barrier to entry. Like anyone can learn and start. And although I went to college for it, I feel like I learned a lot more through real world experience and just putting myself out there and being resourceful. I also feel like it's a career that isn't boring. Like every project is so different. You get to work on cool stuff for different brands and industries. Design is everywhere, and you get to like choose your own path. So whether you're freelancing, working for a brand, or building your own thing, and most importantly, is that it's a valuable and transferable skill. So like once you learn design, it's easier to branch into things like animation, photography, content creation, or even running your own business. The best thing about college was that I got to figure out my career path. I learned the technical fundamentals of learning the programs. I got to meet great people, make great connections, and got to experience the college life like I wanted. And I've gotten to work for so many different brands now, from small startups to print shops to creative agencies. But now I am a full time freelancer specializing in brand identity, creating logos, and packaging design for brands. So I guess you could say I've reached the point to where I can say graphic design is truly my passion. But in all seriousness, I wanted to show y'all some of my works that I've done recently and some of my favorite projects. So most of them are branding projects because again, I specialize in branding and brand identity. So this one is a recent logo and packaging design I made for clients in the energy drink industry. This one was apparel design and packaging design for collagen and pre-workout for a supplement brand. And then this one, I designed the logo and packaging for a brand in the sleep supplement industry. And usually for these projects, I go through a certain process. Usually it starts off with a discovery call or discovery message where I get to know the potential prospect or clients to see if we're even a good fit to work together. And if we are a good fit, the next steps would be me sending a project proposal and getting the contract signed. After that, the client will fill out a strategy questionnaire that I've put together for them for me to get to know the client, the industry, and their brand and what they want. Because a lot of times clients don't know what they want, but when you ask the right questions, that's going to help weed out a lot of things so that you can get more clear on what it is they want and how they use certain terminology. Because what one client thinks is clean and modern, another person could think something totally different. So this is where both parties get aligned. Fourth step is that I will do a competitor analysis or audit. and see what other people in that industry are creating so that I can find the common denominator and then see how we can differentiate ourselves even more from what's already out there. And then I'll present two sort of mood board design directions for the client to choose between. Now, after they've chosen a mood board direction, this is where I go to sketch a logo. And usually I'll do 50 to 100 logos because those first 20 to 30 logo sketches are usually going to be very surface level and most likely have been done before. And to get to those really unique designs and ideas, it usually doesn't happen until like logo number 50 or 75 or even 100. And this is always the fun part, is like that sketching. But once I determine on what's the strongest logo that aligns with their brief and what the client wants, I'll go to vectorize it and digitize it in Adobe Illustrator. And then if there's packaging design or any other deliverables that they're asking for, I would go and design that as well. And then I'll put together a presentation, a design presentation where I present them the logo and all the other assets and mock it up to show them how it would look. And after that, I will send them the deck so that they can sit on it for a few days, and they'll usually come back with any feedback or revisions. I'll usually, do 2 to 3 rounds, but 3 rounds is usually enough. And after they approve of the final direction and logo design and everything, I will send them a brand identity guidelines deck and all the final files. And outside of brand identity design, I will occasionally like to make digital arts and posters like these, for example. And they all usually have some kind of conceptual theme going on. And I try to limit the color palette to like 2 to 4-ish colors each so that I can kind of bring out more contrast that way. So now that you know my story and a little bit about me and my work, I wanted to dive into some of the essential design programs that I've used over the years and that I feel like most important to learn. So the most important is the Adobe Creative Cloud programs. I would say these three are the most important because they're the industry standard. So no matter what brand or company you work for, like they're most likely using these. Now, the differences between the programs, first, Adobe Illustrator, it's a vector-based program, meaning you can scale your graphics to any size without losing the quality. So this is most ideal for logos, vector art, packaging, infographics, and illustrations. Adobe Photoshop is a raster-based program, meaning it's better for photos because it's pixel-based. So this is most ideal for photo editing, digital art, and photo retouching. And finally, Adobe InDesign, it's a vector layout program, so it's most ideal for text and image arrangement. So whether you're designing like magazines, books, editorials, brochures, or even zines, this is the most optimal for that. InDesign is probably the program I use the least out of these three. Now, I just wanted to share some of my early works using the Adobe Creative Suites. I think this was the first year of learning design in college. So the one on the left was done in Illustrator, the one on the right in Photoshop. I don't cringe as hard looking at these as some of my other works, so this is good progress. Now, if you don't have access to the Adobe Creative Cloud programs for some reason, these are some great alternatives to start with. And best of all is that they're free and beginner friendly. So first one being Canva. It's a drag and drop layout program that's perfect for beginners and really great for speeding up your workflow. So this is most ideal for templates, social media posts, posters, flyers, and presentations. And fun fact, I designed this presentation in Canva, and this is my first time using Canva for presentations. So it was really intuitive and really straightforward to use. Second is Photopea, which is very similar to Photoshop. It basically looks just like Photoshop, except it is in the browser and it's free. But the UI interface looks like almost identical to Photoshop. And lastly, Inkscape, which is very similar to Illustrator because it's vector-based. So, doing anything from logo designs and scalable graphics is going to be most optimal for that. Now that you know what programs to start, there are 5 methods that you can apply to start learning and gaining experience. The first one being YouTube University. Now, there are so many generous channels out there that provide free tutorials and share insights on the graphic design industry, but these are just 6 channels that I think do a really great job and would recommend. And I've learned so much on YouTube myself, and it's probably something I will use for the rest of my life. So I'm just a huge advocate of YouTube. I love YouTube. YouTube has shaped me as a person and creator. And did I say I love YouTube? I think so. The second way to get experience is to create fake projects as if you're designing for a real client/brand. And I know sometimes it can be hard to come up with a project brief. So these are just 2 websites that's going to help generate project briefs for you so that you can follow and take inspiration. First one being briefbox.me, second one being goodbrief.io. The third method to learn and get experience is to recreate or redesign something that already exists. Whether that's your favorite movie poster, album cover, brand logo, product packaging, merch, or an ad poster. A good exercise to do is if the Adobe Creative Suite is too overwhelming or intimidating for you, is that you can try to design it in Canva first and then try to recreate it in Illustrator later on so that you can kind of understand the tools and the differences. The fourth method is to start getting real world experience and design for other people, whether that's your family, friends, school, an internship, or a local business or event. But the biggest value here is that you get that real world practice and feedback from other people. So you're no longer doing fake projects and things like that. And you get to really continue honing in on your skills while learning how to work with real people. And lastly, method number 5 is to experiment and create passion projects of your own. The beauty about it is that there's no pressure. You get to really build muscle memory. The more you play around with the tools, the more confident you'll get. It also encourages you to be more creative because you start to explore more of your personal style and preferences, especially when there's no brief or academic expectations. And you learn faster just trying things hands on and getting in the programs. It's going to help you retain that knowledge a lot better versus just watching tutorials back to back. And I would say some of my best work and pivotal moments in my career came from passion projects. So let me take you guys back to the year 2020. So, in the beginning of 2020, I had set out a challenge to create something every single day and post it because I wanted to continue getting better and exploring my artistic style. Because I felt like at this time, I wasn't sure of what my style was, and the only way to combat that was to create a lot of things. So, these were mainly created in Adobe Illustrator, and I also used a iPad app called Procreate for the hand lettering aspects where I can really draw the letters and customize it with the Apple Pencil. But these were mainly illustrations and quotes that I liked. I also created digital art pieces using Photoshops again to further develop my style and refine my skills. And honestly, I'm cringing so hard on the inside right now looking at a lot of these. But again, cringe equals growth, or at least that's what I tell myself. But 6 months into this daily creation challenge, I created something that really altered my career. And that was this social awareness series called This is America. And this was created during a time when COVID really hit the US hard. And I remember there was just so much hatred and division happening at this time. And in order to express my frustration and anger, this series was born. And I really designed it to help cultivate empathy, raise awareness, and spread positivity in a time where I feel like unity was so crucial. And I didn't think much of it at the time, but it turned out many people really resonated with the art and the messaging. So much so that people started sharing my art, and it kind of led for it to go viral everywhere. And it reached over 10 million impressions online. It went viral on every platform. So TikTok, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. And this series alone led me to working with amazing brands and had other opportunities come my way because of this. But those opportunities never would have come my way if I didn't have the courage to put my stuff out there and just be persistent in trying to get better. So, the last thing I'll leave you with is to follow your curiosities, experiment, and create often. Because you never know what those moments will lead to and when the next life changing moments will happen. Like it could be just around the corner if you were just to continue following your curiosities and creating. And that's it for my presentation. Thank you guys so much for watching and being here. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, just let me know down below and I'll do my best to answer. Other than that, I'll see you in the next video. Peace.